Halloween has always been one of my favorite times of the year. Everything about it just makes me super excited. I've never been the type to get genuinely creeped out on Halloween. Heck, I thought I'd grown past that stage years ago. But just after last Halloween, something happened that made me realize that you're never too old to be startled. I live in a small cul-de-sac in the middle of nowhere. The nearest neighborhood is more than 4 miles away. One winter night a few years ago, we got over 1.5 feet of snow overnight. Since we were so far from the main road, and it was the weekend, I knew our street would remain unplowed for a long time. That morning, I went to the back deck to admire how the snow had covered the trees. Everywhere was still, quiet, and beautiful. I took a few pictures. And that's when I noticed footprints. They led straight up to my door and then turned around. My sledding tube that had been on the railing was in an unusual position, so I assumed it was just a prank. I decided not to call the parents yet. It was still too early, and I didn't want to start drama. I went back inside and got on Facebook to scroll for a bit. Then I saw a post from one of my neighbors, the one living in the first house on my street. Her exact captions were, "Did someone knock on my back door?" I couldn't help the strange feeling of premonition that washed over me. I called her and told her about the footprints I had seen leading up to my doorstep. After talking for a while, I informed her that I'd ask around to see if some of our other neighbors had experienced the same thing. So I phoned one of my neighbors and told him what was happening. He went to check, and sure enough, there were footprints at his door too. That's when everyone started calling each other. One by one, each house confirmed the same thing. They had found footprints leading to their doors, except for the last house at the very end of the cul-de-sac. They said they didn't have any. But then my phone rang again. It was my next-door neighbor. She'd just spoken with the woman who lived next to the last house with no footprints, and that's when things got really unsettling. She revealed that the lady had found footprints leading to her door, but none leading away. By now, everyone was panicking. We called the local authorities again and explained it was urgent. But because our roads were covered with snow and privately owned, they said they couldn't send a plow truck right away. The woman who had footprints leading only to her door was panicking. One of the husbands across the road, a huge guy, the kind of man who could have been a bear in another life, decided to invite her over. He ran through the snow to her house, brought her out safely, and she ended up staying over at his place. We decided to put up one guy's motion-activated hunting cameras at all exits of the cul-de-sac. If someone was still out there, we'd catch them. For hours we watched the live feed, but we found nothing strange. There was no movement, no strange figures, and no new tracks. Finally, around 7 p.m., a plow truck showed up, followed by 3 cop cars. The woman, along with the couple she was staying with, went back to her house. They stood by the doorway while the police searched the place. They found no signs of forced entry, so they assumed that whatever intruder we'd all been talking about was probably made up. The lady begged the officers to search again, just in case they had missed a spot. 2 of them decided to head down into the basement. Only one came back up. A few minutes later, he pulled the woman aside into another room. We couldn't make out the words they were saying, but their shocked reactions were heard a few moments later. This attracted most of the neighbors who watched from a safe distance. When we tried to approach, several officers stepped in front of us, blocking the way. Then one of them said quietly, "We found something unusual." Under a hidden opening in the stairwell in an area the homeowner didn't even know existed, they found a man hidden beneath a concealed part of the stairwell. As the officers brought him out, I couldn't help but notice that he appeared confused and cold. They put him in cuffs and led him out into the snow. Later, we found out he'd been living in her basement for who knows how long. In that little crawl space, he'd set up a small camp with food wrappers, a flashlight, and even blankets she had just washed and put away. There were signs he'd been sneaking upstairs at night. The cops told us he turned out to be a man from the next county with a prior record. He'd apparently gotten into a disagreement with his roommate, taken his car and driven off in the middle of the night. When the storm hit, he must have gotten stuck on our unplowed road and decided to hole up in the first house he found. That house. The one with the footprints that went in but not out. After that night, she couldn't bring herself to stay there anymore. For months, she lived with other people in the neighborhood. Even when she finally went back, she never stayed alone. The house went up for sale the following summer. The rest of us never looked at our quiet little cul-de-sac the same way again. Now, every Halloween when the snow starts to fall and the night gets too quiet, I can't help but check the deck door one more time, just to make sure there aren't any footprints. Has something ever made a long-lasting impression on you that so many years later, it still feels like it happened yesterday? We tell ourselves monsters aren't real. We reassure ourselves that the strange stories we hear about people disappearing at night, or mysterious figures waiting by deserted roads, are just exaggerations. I used to think like that too, but after what I experienced at 19, I'm not so sure anymore. It was late, around 10 p.m., when I got off the train that night. I'd been at a friend's house and had stayed longer than planned. I remember thinking about how cold the air felt. The train station was empty except for a few fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Usually, I liked exploring the train station at odd hours when few people were present. It was quiet, and I'd done it so many times before. But that night, something about it felt different. The hum of the rails, the distant bark of a dog, the shuffle of my own shoes, every little sound of nature was amplified in the cold night air. Halfway down the street, I saw it. At first, a dark shadow. I figured it was someone like me who had probably stayed out too late, but something about his aura felt off. My eyes narrowed. I slowed my pace a little, trying to make sense of it. He wasn't moving much. He just stood there, waiting. I'm not someone who scares easily. I wasn't the kind of person who jumps at the sight of tall, dark strangers who looked intimidating enough to make me nervous. But as I got closer, my heartbeat picked up. My body's alert response kicked in instantly, and I couldn't decide which option to take. Should I turn back, or keep walking and tell myself it was nothing? My rational side won out. He's probably not up to anything shady, I muttered under my breath. Someone walking home, same as me. So I kept going. With every step, the outline of his body became more apparent. The broad shoulders, the hood pulled up low over his face, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. Something about his posture made my heart beat in an erratic way. I quickened my pace, but it only served to increase my sense of alarm as my sneakers started making soft slapping sounds on the pavement. My palms were slick with sweat despite the cold. Who just stands there, motionless, that late at night? When I got within a few meters of him, my breath caught in my throat. The hood shadowed most of his face, but I could see the glint of something metallic in his right hand. It caught the streetlight just long enough for me to realize it was something metallic, something that looked metallic. And what made it even more concerning was the fact that something about his posture made me feel like I might be uncomfortable. I tried to act normal, to walk past him like I hadn't noticed. Many people had gun licenses, surely he was one of them. I moved with all the speed a human could use while managing to look normal. He didn't move. Not an inch. He just turned his head slightly, following me as I walked past. The hood hid everything except his jawline. He was noticeably taller than me, at least a head higher. The height difference only made him more frightening to look upon. I remember thinking I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, that pulsing sound, fast and uneven, like my body was trying to warn me before my mind could. I told myself not to look at him again, not to give him a reason to think I'd seen too much. But my eyes kept flicking toward him in the glass reflections of parked cars. That's when I noticed something else. There were no cars parked near him at all. Just open space, as if the whole street had been cleared, and he was waiting exactly where he wanted to be seen. I kept my eyes fixed on the road ahead, forcing myself not to break into a run, even though every instinct screamed at me to bolt. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I passed him in silence. He didn't speak. He didn't make a sound. He just stood there, turning slowly, watching me walk away. My skin prickled with goosebumps. Something in me broke after that. I started hearing phantom footsteps behind me. Even though the road was empty, I'd glance at the glass of shop windows or streetlight reflections, half expecting that hood to reappear behind me. At one point, a dog barked from a yard nearby, and I nearly shouted. It felt like the whole street had gone silent just to listen to me panic. I don't think I've ever felt that kind of primal fear before, the kind that makes you move faster than thought, just pure instinct keeping you alive. Once I was a few steps away from him, I couldn't hold it in anymore. My brisk walk became a jog. My jog became a near run. The houses blurred by on my right. I didn't dare look back at first. It felt like if I did, I might see him following me. Call me dramatic, but I wasn't about to risk finding out what his intentions were. After about 4 or 5 houses, though, I let my fear get to me. I turned around to check if he was coming after me, but to my surprise, he was gone. Except if I had magically developed the powers of the Flash, there was nowhere the guy could have run to in such a short time. No vehicle had passed us by, no side street was leading away. The railway fence on the other side was too high to climb. He couldn't have ducked into one of the houses without me hearing a door slam. He was just gone. Later, when I told my friends about it, they joked that maybe he was just a drunk guy or a tired commuter. But I couldn't shake the detail of that metallic glint. The slow way he turned his head to follow me, like he wanted me to know I'd been seen. For weeks afterward, I kept replaying it, how still he was, how deliberate. It didn't feel random. It felt planned. Like maybe I wasn't the first person to walk that stretch of road alone, and I definitely wouldn't have been the last if I'd hesitated. I turned and ran, full speed, until I reached the nearest cross street. My lungs burned, my legs shook, but I didn't stop until I was on a busier road. I didn't even realize I'd been holding my breath until I gasped out loud. Never in my life did I walk down that road at odd hours again. For years afterward, I tried to rationalize what I saw. Maybe I was being dramatic and he was actually a normal guy, just a scary one. Or perhaps he was just some man waiting for someone. Maybe it was all in my head. But there are things I can't explain. Why was he standing so still? Why did he turn his head so slowly, like he was studying me? Where did he disappear to when there was nowhere to go? And why was he holding something that caught the light like metal? Those questions still gnaw at me, especially when I think back to how real it felt. Sometimes I wonder if he was waiting for someone else that night, or if I was supposed to be that someone. I'm not 19 anymore. I've walked a lot of dark streets since then. I've been in dangerous neighborhoods, seen actual scary things, but nothing has ever made my skin crawl like that night. Even thinking about it now makes my stomach knot. That night, something happened that changed the way I see the world. I don't tell this story often because it sounds too much like one of those stranger in the dark tales you read online. But it wasn't a story to me. It was real. Sometimes, late at night, I picture him again on that road, the tall, silent, hooded stranger, and wonder if he still goes back regularly, waiting for someone else to walk by. But what haunts me the most is the fact that I never heard his footsteps, and I never saw where he went. Have you ever moved into a place only to feel like there's something or someone around threatening you? That was exactly how I felt when my family and I first moved into our condo. It wasn't supposed to be creepy. In fact, it was supposed to be the opposite. My parents had saved up for years, and by the time I was in my 3rd year in the university, they were finally able to move us into a newer development out in the rural part of town. It wasn't some centuries-old Victorian with creaking floors or a boarded-up attic. It was a condo built within the last decade, modern, sleek, and comfortable. The first month was fine. Great, even. We were excited about the space, the quiet neighborhood, and the idea of starting fresh somewhere new. But then, little things started to happen. It began with the lights. My dad would change a bulb that had gone out, and a few days later it would burn out again. But when he unscrewed the cover to check, the bulb wasn't broken, it had been loosened a bit and it was dangling inside the fixture. Now, these weren't just normal bulbs you could reach up and twist with one hand. They were the kind of lights that look like upside-down bowls on the ceiling, the ones you actually have to stand on a chair for, carefully twist off the glass dome, and then reach in to unscrew the bulb. It was just tedious enough that my dad started grumbling about it. At first, he thought one of us was playing a prank, but none of us wanted to climb up there just to unscrew light bulbs. It didn't make sense. Still, we brushed it off as one of those weird quirks of new houses. Months passed. Nothing dramatic happened. Just the occasional sound or misplaced item. But then my mom started sleeping in my room. She'd been on an air mattress in another room while we rearranged furniture, and she decided that taking the biggest room at the back of the house would be more comfortable. That first night, she slept there. She woke up around 3 a.m., feeling something odd. She said it felt like someone had pressed their hand against the mattress right by her feet. No one was there. A few nights later, she swore she heard the window shade snap against the wall, as if someone had yanked it all the way up and let it fall. She checked the window. It was closed and locked. The next night, she heard the same sound followed by a soft creak of the floorboards near the window. Then her bedroom door slowly clicked shut. She didn't sleep much after that. At first, I didn't buy any of it. My mom can be dramatic, and I'm a heavy sleeper. I figured if something weird was going on, I would have noticed. But even I had to admit the condo had strange energy at night. Sometimes when I walked down the hallway, I'd feel a prickling sensation on my neck, like someone was standing right behind me. Sometimes the air felt heavy, thick, almost charged. But I remained skeptical until my mum finally gave up and moved out of my room. That's when things got strange for me, too. It was the last week of October. Halloween decorations hung around the neighborhood, and even our quiet cul-de-sac had fake cobwebs, carved pumpkins, and orange lights strung up. That night, I went to bed later than usual, around midnight. My parents had gone to a Halloween party, and I had the house to myself. Around 3 a.m., I woke up suddenly. My room was dark, except for the faint glow of the security light outside the window. I couldn't move. My body felt heavy, locked in place. I thought maybe it was a dream, but then I heard a clicking sound. It came from the direction of my window. My heart started hammering. I told myself it was probably the wind, maybe a branch tapping the glass. But the sound came again, louder this time. A metallic scrape. Then the faint creak of the window sliding upward. I wanted to move, to scream, but my body wouldn't respond. I could only stare. The curtains stirred, and for a split second I saw the outline of a man. He was tall and thin, dressed in dark clothes, wearing a half mask that hid his face. I froze completely. He wasn't supposed to be there. My body finally jolted into motion. I scrambled out of bed, heart racing so fast it made me dizzy. The figure froze when I moved. For a long second, we just stared at each other in my pajamas, him half in shadow, one leg over the window ledge. Then he slipped backward, vanishing into the night. I ran to the window, but by the time I got there, he was gone. The grass beneath the window was slightly flattened, but there was no one outside. No sound of footsteps, no car engine, nothing. Just silence and the distant barking of a dog. I slammed the window shut, locked it, and didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning I told my parents. They thought maybe it was just a bad dream, that the Halloween season had gotten into my head. But when my dad checked the window, he found scratches near the latch, fresh ones. Someone had definitely tried to pry it open. After that, we started noticing little things we'd ignored before. The light bulbs weren't just unscrewed, they were missing. My mum's jewelry box was moved from her dresser to the floor. Our back gate, which always stayed latched, was found open twice. My dad installed cameras, but they didn't seem to help much. Sometimes we'd wake up and find one of them tilted toward the ground, like someone had reached up and adjusted it. He thought it was a glitch. I didn't. One night, while scrolling on my phone, I heard faint footsteps in the hall. My parents were asleep. The steps were light, deliberate. I froze, listening. They stopped right outside my door. Then came the sound of breathing. Slow, steady, right on the other side. I stared at the door, heart pounding, too scared to say a word. After what felt like forever, the footsteps moved away. I didn't sleep again that night either. A few days later, my mum found something behind the shed in our backyard. A folded grey hoodie, a half-empty bottle of water, and a set of gloves. Whoever had been sneaking around wasn't just trespassing. They'd been staying close. Watching. We called the police. They searched the area and told us we weren't the only ones. 2 other homes nearby had reported strange noises, open gates, and missing items, mostly small things, easy to pocket. They said Halloween was often prank season, but from the officer's tone, I could tell he didn't think this was just a prank. After that night, we kept every light on. My dad reinforced the windows, installed motion sensors, and changed the locks. For a while, things calmed down, but the unease never really went away. I stopped sleeping with my window open, even in summer. My mum refused to stay home alone. My dad started checking every door twice before bed. The silence that had once made the condo feel peaceful now made it unbearable. Years later, I still think about that Halloween night, the masked figure, the sound of the window sliding open, the feeling of being watched long before I ever saw him. Sometimes I wonder how long he'd been coming around before that, how many nights I'd been asleep, completely unaware that someone was standing just outside, staring in. Every now and then, when I drive past the development, it looks clean, quiet, ordinary, like nothing unusual could ever happen there. But sometimes I can't help but wonder if someone new moves in. Will he leave them alone? Or will they start noticing their light bulbs going missing too?